Introduction. Welcome, fellow seekers of wisdom. Today we embark on a transformative journey through the heart of Stoic philosophy. This path may change the way you view yourself, your actions, and the world around you. As we go through life, we often feel trapped by the weight of our thoughts, consumed by our fears, and pulled in countless directions by desires that promise fulfillment, but leave us feeling empty. These words from the great Stoic philosopher Seneca resonate deeply in our daily struggles. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. How often do we find ourselves caught up in imagined fears? How many times have we felt paralyzed by what could go wrong, only to realize that our fears were rooted in nothing more than our overactive imaginations? Consider a moment in your life where you felt consumed by worry. Whether it was before an important meeting, an exam, or any moment that demanded your courage. Often, the scenario we fear plays out only in our minds. Yet the anxiety and distress we experience feel incredibly real. This is the crux of the Stoic struggle, the battle against the traps of our own minds. The Stoics understood that human nature is prone to certain vices, hidden forces that cloud our judgment, fuel our desires, and guide us away from living a virtuous, peaceful life. These vices are what the Stoics referred to as the 4 Stoic Sins: foolishness, injustice, cowardice, and intemperance. These sins, though seemingly subtle, are the very forces that keep us trapped in cycles of frustration and dissatisfaction. However, the good news is that recognizing these vices is the first step toward overcoming them. Today, we will explore each of these Stoic sins, uncovering their manifestations in our lives, and most importantly, how we can transform them into their virtuous counterparts: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. This isn't just ancient philosophy. These lessons are incredibly practical and relevant in the modern world. Whether you're a stressed-out professional, a confused student, or anyone in between, the wisdom we will uncover together has the power to reshape your perspective and empower your decisions. So, are you ready to challenge your assumptions, face your fears, and cultivate a more virtuous life? Let's dive in and discover how avoiding these Stoic sins can lead us to a life of wisdom, justice, courage, and self-control. Lesson 1. Foolishness. Foolishness, in the Stoic sense, is not about lacking intelligence, but about acting without wisdom. It is the act of making decisions based on fleeting emotions or false perceptions, rather than using reason and careful reflection. As Epictetus famously said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." This is a profound truth. The majority of our suffering comes not from external events, but from the way we interpret and react to them. How foolishness traps us. Let's start by considering a common scenario. You're running late for an important meeting. You're stuck in traffic, and your mind races. I'm going to be late. My boss is going to be furious. I might lose my job. I'll disappoint everyone. Your heart pounds and your grip tightens on the steering wheel. But take a moment. Are these thoughts rooted in reality, or are they just products of your mind spiraling into worst-case scenarios? This is foolishness in action, acting based on irrational fears and judgments rather than on clear, calm thinking. The reality of the situation is that being late, while inconvenient, does not necessarily result in the catastrophic outcomes we fear. In fact, the vast majority of the time, our fears never materialize in the way we imagine them. The Stoic approach to foolishness is to pause, take a deep breath, and assess the situation with reason. Is there an actual threat? What are the real consequences of the situation? And how can we respond wisely? In the case of the traffic jam, calling ahead and explaining the situation with calmness is a far better approach than spiraling into anxiety. This is the essence of Stoic wisdom, understanding the difference between what we can control and what we cannot. Transforming foolishness into wisdom. The antidote to foolishness is cultivating wisdom, acting in accordance with reason rather than reacting impulsively. The Stoics encouraged us to ask ourselves, what is the wise thing to do in this situation? By practicing mindfulness and self-reflection, we can begin to recognize when we're falling into the trap of foolish thinking. By questioning our assumptions and focusing on reality, we can avoid letting our minds run wild with fear and anxiety. Wisdom requires not just intelligence, but emotional regulation and awareness of our impulses. It's about grounding our thoughts in reason, asking ourselves whether our fears are realistic and whether our emotional responses are proportionate to the situation at hand. When we approach life with wisdom, we free ourselves from the trap of foolishness. Lesson 2. Injustice. Injustice, in Stoic philosophy, goes beyond the obvious wrongs we see in the world, such as crime or inequality. It refers to any action, judgment, or thought that disrupts the natural order of fairness, equality, and moral integrity. Injustice is often born out of our tendency to react with anger or frustration when we perceive wrongdoing. How injustice traps us. Imagine you're in a meeting, and a colleague takes credit for an idea you proposed. You feel a surge of indignation. This isn't fair. I deserve the recognition. Your mind starts racing with resentment and thoughts of retaliation. I'll make sure they know that I was the one who came up with this idea. While it's natural to feel upset when we're wronged, the Stoics remind us that our emotional reactions often exacerbate the situation. Instead of addressing the injustice with reason, we fall into the trap of anger, bitterness, or revenge. This emotional reaction only harms our inner peace and clouds our judgment, leading us further away from justice and virtue. The Stoics believe that true justice is not about getting even or seeking retribution. It's about aligning ourselves with the natural order of the world, acting in ways that are fair, kind, and virtuous, regardless of how others behave. Transforming injustice into justice. The Stoic remedy for injustice is to act according to our principles, regardless of external circumstances. Instead of focusing on the wrongdoer's actions, we focus on what we can control, our own responses. This is where we find true justice, acting with integrity and fairness, even when others may not. To free ourselves from the trap of injustice, we must focus on maintaining our own moral compass. When we're wronged, we don't allow. Lesson 3. Cowardice. Cowardice is not just about fearing physical danger. It is also about hesitating to act in accordance with virtue due to fear of discomfort, failure, or rejection. It's the reluctance to face challenges because we're afraid of the potential consequences. How cowardice traps us. Consider a situation where you see someone being mistreated and you know you should speak up, but instead you hesitate. What if I make things worse? What if I'm the one who ends up in trouble? The fear of negative outcomes holds you back, even though you know the right thing to do is to stand up for what's just. Cowardice manifests itself in many ways: avoiding difficult conversations, shying away from standing up for our values, or letting opportunities pass us by because we're afraid of the discomfort that might come with them. Whether it's confronting a colleague, challenging an unfair system, or taking risks in our personal lives, cowardice keeps us stuck. Transforming cowardice into courage. The Stoic approach to cowardice is to reframe fear not as an obstacle but as a challenge to overcome. As Epictetus advised, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. Courage is not about being fearless, it's about acknowledging our fear and choosing to do the right thing anyway. It's about embracing discomfort and adversity as opportunities to grow. By practicing courage in small ways, whether it's speaking up in a meeting, having a difficult conversation, or taking a leap toward a goal, we strengthen our ability to face larger challenges with composure and conviction. Lesson 4. Intemperance. Intemperance is the excessive indulgence in pleasures, whether they be food, drink, or other forms of instant gratification. It is a lack of self-control, where we prioritize momentary pleasures over long-term well-being. How intemperance traps us. Imagine you've had a stressful day. Your mind craves relief, and you give in to the impulse to indulge in something comforting. Maybe it's overeating, drinking too much, or binge-watching TV to escape your thoughts. At first it feels good, but the relief is fleeting, and soon you're left feeling empty and unfulfilled. This is the trap of intemperance. We believe that external comforts will bring us happiness, but they only offer temporary satisfaction. In reality, true fulfillment comes not from indulgence, but from self-mastery and alignment with our values. Transforming intemperance into temperance. The Stoic remedy for intemperance is self-control. By practicing temperance, we learn to regulate our desires, making conscious choices that prioritize our long-term well-being over immediate gratification. It's not about denying ourselves pleasure altogether, but about moderating our indulgences and finding contentment in simplicity. Temperance allows us to enjoy life's pleasures without becoming enslaved to them. It cultivates balance, helping us focus on what truly brings us lasting fulfillment, whether that's meaningful work, relationships, or personal growth. By practicing temperance, we free ourselves from the cycle of excess and find a deeper, more lasting sense of peace. Conclusion. The 4 Stoic sins, foolishness, injustice, cowardice, and intemperance, are not just abstract philosophical concepts. They are deeply ingrained patterns of behavior that influence our daily lives. Whether we're reacting emotionally to external events, holding on to grudges, avoiding discomfort, or indulging in excess, these vices trap us in cycles of unhappiness and discontent. But there is hope. The Stoics provide us with a practical roadmap for transforming these vices into virtues. By cultivating wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, we can break free from the chains that keep us trapped in suffering. This journey is not easy, but it is deeply rewarding. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Let us take this wisdom to heart, apply